Hi, we are Darren and Sharon, a couple in our 50s who recently quit our jobs, sold our home and moved into a caravan to travel Australia full-time with our little dog Cooper. Please join us in our adventures, like and subscribe to cheer us on and to allow us to inspire you as we have been inspired by others.
Okay, well, good morning. We're currently at Wangaratta Caravan Park in Bowen. In the last episode, or episode 2, Sharon gave a tour of the inside of the van, so I thought today I'd give you a look at the outside. So we might start at the front. Firstly, we've got a DO35 hitch, which is hidden behind our Saracen lock that we have in place pretty well all the time when we're parked up. We've got all of our cords and that. We've got this bag from Navigator, which keeps all of those cords out of the moisture when it rains, so I basically set that there like that. We've obviously got our standard jockey wheel. We've got our breakaway hitch, so that attaches to the car when we're towing it, so if you have a separation of the car and the caravan, it pulls this pin out and locks the brakes on immediately. We've got an Elco electronic stability control, so that's just an indicator light to indicate that it's working. So again, that's for if the caravan gets a sway up whilst you're towing it, it'll actually apply the brakes automatically. So it's a really good safety feature of the van that we have. I should mention that we've got a JB, which is a Just Brilliant caravan. So it's 20'6", dual axle, total weight, total aggregate trailer mass is 3,300 kilos, and the tear weight's about that 2650 kgs. So 2 gas bottles. We have one on this side, which is our main, obviously connected to the gas line there. When this runs out, we have to swap them over. Something that I don't like. I prefer them just joined, but it is what it is, so if you take one out, put it over the other side. Pretty standard toolbox, so that stores our wheel chocks and miscellaneous tooling and so on. We have our fuel tank for our diesel heater that I've recently installed, and recently when we were in Rockhampton, we stayed at the Captain and Deb's, and he basically helped me make this bracket up for that, which to help give it some UV protection as well as some protection from the rocks as we're travelling. Obviously a stone guard, and yeah, that pretty well covers the front. So we've got what I like about the JB van is they've got lights all around the van. So this is the front one, we've got one at the rear, we've got one on the off side, and we've got 3 on the awning side. So I'll keep going round. There's a tunnel boot which goes all the way through. This side of the tunnel boot is just storage of miscellaneous stuff. So we've got our floor mat, a beach umbrella, and a couple of chairs that fit in this side. So really good storage which goes all the way through, which we're quite happy about. Over here we have our gas hot water system sits in here, so it's a Swift 28 litre gas hot water system. When we're plugged into caravan park power like we are, it reverts to a 240 volt or electric hot water system, just to save gas while you're hooked up to power. We have 2 95 litre water tanks, so they're separate tanks, so there's a switch inside that enables us to alternate between water tanks. Our approach is we run one tank dry, switch it over and run the other tank. Other people run both tanks, so you have the same level through the two. There are water gauges that I'll show you when we go inside, which show the level of each water tank. We have 2 batteries, so this is where the batteries sit. I like the fact that they sit on the outside of the van. Many vans have them sitting under the bed or under the seats inside. For me, that takes up storage room. So having them on the outside, I think is a really good idea. The only disadvantage is you do get a little bit of dust and dirt and rocks that sit on top of the batteries, but if you keep on top of that from a cleaning perspective, we shouldn't have too many problems. They're pretty well protected there. Might as well talk about our battery system. So these two batteries are 125 amp hour, they're lithium. I recently upgraded from AGM batteries that came with the van to lithium batteries. So each has Bluetooth capability, so I like the fact that I can check the state of charge via the app on my phone. These batteries go into, I guess, a Red Arc battery management system, which is a battery model 30, which means that the maximum charge that the system will accept is 30 amps, and that's fed from three 160 watt solar panels, which add up to obviously a total of 480 watts of solar power on the roof, and that pretty well provides me with the maximum charge capability feeding into the battery management system. Supporting that battery management system is an EnerDrive 2000 watt inverter, which we use when we're off grid to provide 240 volt power to all of our general power outlets throughout the van. So we find that particularly useful when we want to run the coffee machine, the bread maker, the ice machine, pretty well any appliance that we want, and also the air conditioner will run for a few hours if we need it. So we find that super convenient having that 2000 watt inverter, and that's an upgrade. The standard inverter that came with the van was 600 watt, so I upgraded that to 2000 watt as part of that upgrade that we did with the batteries. Yeah, so I think that's all from a battery power management system. So we'll go through here. This is where obviously the 240 volt inlet comes in when you're on grid or in a caravan park. Set of breakers there on the outside. Moving down here, we have a fridge vent, so top and bottom. So this is where our fridge operates. So we've got a Dometic RMD X25, which is a 190 litre fridge freezer. Sharon mentioned, or she showed that in episode 2. We find it quite effective so far. We haven't been in any particularly hot weather, but you do hear discussions that these may not be as effective as a full compressor fridge, but we find it well and truly effective for our means at the moment. What I did do when I did the electrical upgrade was I did get the guys to put in a thermal fan. So it's an automatic fan that sits in the back of the fridge compartment, so if it senses the fridge environment getting warm, it automatically comes on and exhausts the hot air out of that fridge compartment through the vents, and that may or may not help when we need it. In here we have the toilet cassette, so it's a standard Dometic toilet. Down here we have our grey water tank. So not sure whether I mentioned, but the two water tanks are 95 litres, as is the grey water tank. So basically all of the drains through the van come through the wastewater tank. So when we want to go to a spot where they won't let you drop grey water onto the ground, we just turn this tap off, it fills the grey water tank up till we get to a place where we can empty it. The extra little addition that I made was to put that extra fitting on there. So what I can do, because all of the waste goes through the grey water tank, what you can find is it builds up a bit of grungy stuff on the bottom of the tank. So every time I hook up to a caravan park or good water supply, I flush through putting the hose onto that, and it flushes the inside of that grey water tank, and it flushes the crap off the bottom of it. This is obviously where the fresh water supply comes in. So it goes through a pressure reducing valve and into the van. Need to have a pressure reducing valve on because a lot of water from caravan parks can be at a pressure that can cause damage in the van, which can cause fittings to blow off. In here, I think it's locked at the moment, we have our, I guess, our generator box, and that's where I store the water hose bags and the wastewater hose and the extension cords and so on. So really handy compartment, this one, and yeah, so it's very good.
What size generator have you got?
So we've got a good question. We've got a Honda 2.2 kilowatt. So really pleased with it. It runs the air conditioner really well when we need to, and we use it very rarely, but time to time, just to top the batteries up. We can run it for a couple of hours and it will put in 30 amps to the battery, which is effectively 30 amp hours for every hour that you run. So yeah, we find that quite good. Back here, pretty happy with this little bit of extra storage that we got at the back. So we've got what I call the wood box. So we like to carry around at least one night of wood, just in case we rock up somewhere and we can't find wood. So we carry pretty well everywhere at least one night of wood, and a little bit of extra storage there. Recently purchased this. So this is a crash pad, I guess dirt bag on the, obviously on the spare wheel. So that's a canvas bag. It's waterproof, it's dust proof, and that allows us to, I guess, put our rubbish in, our recycles in, whatever it is. That just provides that extra little bit of storage, and I'm really happy with the quality that the crash pad team from the Sunshine Coast came up with there. Really impressed with that. Over here we have a external outdoor shower. So that's a hot cold shower, pretty standard in most caravans in terms of the shower. Here we have just a couple of jerry can locations. One is water and the other one I carry now is spare diesel. So that's for our diesel heater that we've recently installed, as well as a bit of a backup for car fuel tank range, because I only go pretty standard with the fuel tank on the car. And up the top we've got a Safety Dave rear camera. Find that really useful that's on all the time when connected to the car, and that enables us when we're traveling to see who's behind us, and we can help manage the traffic. You know, we can see what sort of traffic's behind us, but also obviously when we're backing into places like this, Sharon actually stands behind the van and just is able to give me directions. And it's also got a microphone on it, so I can hear what she says. We've pretty well got the standard Dometic awning that's pretty well on a lot of vans, if not most vans. We've got obviously the door system is pretty standard as well. You've got a screen door, it's just a twisted handle, three lock door system, so that just goes back on there, or you can close that door. So one of the things we've changed out here is, I mentioned earlier that I really love the lighting that's on these JB vans. On this side it's got two lights, one above the door and one above this window. They were really bright white lights, and what you find is when you're camping, that attracts a lot of insects. So we've also got this light over here, which is where the Barbie sits typically here. So that's a white bright light as well. So what we did is we got some cloth tape, which is you know, readily available, and we put 5 layers of cloth tape on those white lights, and that's turned them into a nice soft blue light. So that enables plenty of light when we're still outside, and it does dramatically reduces the amount of insects that we've got. I'll just shift this. I haven't spoken about the tyres. So the tyres that we've got on here are 275 45 R16 general grabber all-terrains. So nice tread pattern. They're quite a good quality tyre, which I'm impressed with. And they sit under a Elco cross-country suspension system. So I'll show you a picture of that shortly, but it's 2 shock absorbers, independent suspension, 2 shock absorbers for each wheel position. It's not the most rugged suspension system that they have. It's a middle of the road, so this is classified as a semi-off-road van. The more off-road models have a slightly heavier duty suspension, and in some cases they then go airbag and so on. So this is not that's middle of the range. This compartment here is basically where the TV bracket is, so it's got an aerial connection TV bracket, and that's where I store a lot of the miscellaneous stuff that we use for cooking in that air, like oils, paper towels, Aerogard and all that sort of stuff that just accumulates and puts in there. It's also got a USB point in here which we use to charge the phones and iPads and that when we're sitting out here. Very handy. It's got 240 volt power as well as 12 volt connection in there as well. Pretty standard picnic table, so again really handy. We hadn't had one of these before in any of the previous sort of campers that we've had, but we use this a lot. We store our newly acquired air fryer, which I've sort of been ignorant to this air fryer phenomenon that's taken over the world up until about 3 or 4 weeks ago when we were in a Harvey Bay and we picked one up. 40 bucks from Aldi, smallest one you can get. I think it's 3.2 litres. Ambiano brand, and we're really happy with it. Does bacon really well, perfecto after 9 minutes. So really easy to operate and clean. So you could argue that we're now converted to the air fryer worldwide phenomenon that's around the world at the moment. We had this fridge in our previous camper. So it's a Waco CFX 50. I've been really happy with it. So it opens from the top. So it plugs into either 240 volt here, or there's a 12 volt plug on the side of the van that I got put in when I purchased the van. So it gives us good versatility to the main fridge. It gives us also a backup if the main fridge has problems from time to time. If it does, we have a backup. It's a bit of a pain in the bum to take in and out of the van all the time, but everything's a compromise with this type of living. And what it does is it provides us with some extra storage when we have to go on longer trips. So it's handy. We like it. If it failed, we might get a smaller model just to make it still have the versatility, but make it a little bit easier to cart it in and out of the van. When we're traveling, we take it up and we put it under the table. So yeah, and we have a lock. So we've learnt the hard way. So security is one of the things that you have to take into account when you're living on the road or living in caravan parks or free camps and so on. And we have learnt the hard way. I always lock the fridge to the van, and I've got a bike lock which does that. But in the past we've been a bit complacent and we haven't locked the fridge. So we're at Dicky Beach and Sunshine Coast, came home after dinner one night and found that someone had helped themselves to a nice selection of red wine and white wine out of our fridge. So once bitten, twice shy, and we've learnt that lesson, and we now keep a cable lock which we lock to keep the lid secure whilst we travel anyway. Stealing alcohol from us is not a very nice thing, and it hurts us the most. So this side is the tunnel boot storage, the other side. So I put this basket in, so this is where I guess a lot of the regular equipment that I use, so barbecue wipes, the cordless drill to use the legs and all those sorts of things, toolbox and pegs and so on. So it's all good. We have a key lock, so this is particularly useful. We just store the spare key for our van in it, and that just sits on there and it rides really well. Okay, so the next part of our outside tour is bringing you inside to some of the key things that relate to outside. So diesel heater. So I bought this off eBay, one of the Chinese brands that are readily available on eBay. We did a lot of research, and we had to make a decision on whether we go with the well-established German brands, which were about $2,500, or go with the cheaper knockoff Chinese. Lots and lots of people have lots and lots of opinions on it, but the research that we did, the Chinese brand diesel heaters are performing very well, and as such, for 200 bucks delivered within a week off eBay, that's the direction that we chose. So we had no problems installing it. All of the pieces turned up in the box. as ordered, and there's a bit of information available on YouTube as to what mistakes to avoid. So doing that research, we're able to really go through this installation with the minimum amount of problems, actually with no problems. So basically here the unit sits here. So this is the outlet, goes to a vent here. The inlet from an air side of things comes in this end. I'm about to go to Townsville, and whilst I'm in Townsville I'm going to actually put a hole through the side of the bed frame here, because this is the air that gets sort of sucked through and blown out after it's heated, and I feel that this will be a void that we need to give it a better chance. So I'll put a hole through the side of the bed frame and put a vent on it and connect that with a bit of a duct, and that will solve that problem. So basically it's controlled through a little panel that sits on the side of the bed frame here, which I won't move, but basically there's a little panel that sits over here which we turn it on and off. It's also got a little remote control that you can turn it on and adjust the heat temperature. So it's a 5 kilowatt version. There's a lot of discussion about whether you go 2 kilowatt or 5 kilowatt. We chose 5 kilowatt because you can vary it from 1 kilowatt up to 5 kilowatt depending on what your needs are. So that's what we chose, and so far we're really happy. Haven't had to use it as such except for drying a little bit of washing the other day, but as we head north and into the winter in the Atherton Tablelands, and then we come through Western Queensland, I'm sure we'll be very pleased that the unit is working quite well. Okay, so what I'm going to show you now is, I guess, the underside of the van with particular reference to our diesel heater that we've recently installed. So I can show you, this is where the diesel heater comes through the floor. So we had to cut a 100mm hole through the floor, and out of that hole comes the exhaust, which goes down underneath the van, so all of the exhaust fumes come out of there. This green line goes up to a fuel pump which sits here, so there's an electric wire which comes out through another hole in the floor, and that fuel supply goes up to the diesel fuel tank that's mounted on the toolbox that we've seen earlier. Whether or not this muffler lasts with respect to getting hit by rocks, we'll see, but we want to be able to get those exhaust fumes out and as low as possible so they're not building up underneath the van when you're sitting out in the awning, for instance. For whatever reason the diesel heater might be operating inside. Okay, so I just want to cover the other side of the battery management system. So the control panel sits up in here, so I might take that off you. So the control panel sits up in here, and this is where I'm able to monitor the state of charge, you know, the charge coming in, you know, where things are at, where the source of charge is coming from, whether it be from a solar, whether it be from the vehicle, or whether it be through the 240 on-grid power. We have our switches here. So on the left there's the aircon switch. We wish you could turn that on at the moment, but it's broken. Water pump, electric hot water, and then gas hot water. Over here we have our water gauges. So the two water tanks are on the left showing full, and the grey water tank is the one on the right. It's showing full, but it's empty. So it has a little bit of a temperamental challenge around getting stuff on the sensor. Even though it's empty, it's showing full, but that's not a great problem because we know it's empty. So in here is our, I guess, the other part of the battery management system. So this is the DC to DC charger, the battery protection area, the battery protection device, and the remote switch to turn the inverter on and off. So talking about our Arlo security camera system, so this is the camera that's mounted on the outside. What it's got is it's got great 180-degree angle, so we can see anyone that walks up to the door, and we can also see anyone that might approach the fridge. So basically when I turn it on, it will alert me whenever there's motion out here. So it works really well. We've had it turned on in camps, and we get a visit from a dingo at 2 o'clock every morning on one particular campsite that we're at. So yeah, we've noticed goannas and whatever else. We haven't noticed any people coming up to the camp, which is quite good, but yeah, it's there just in case. And it's particularly good if we're away from the van. We can see anyone that's approaching the van. I can put a camera out the window or wherever it might be inside the van, so that if we are out and about for whatever reason, we have a sense of comfort that if someone does approach the van, then at least we can be alerted. There is the ability then to sound an alarm and also talk through the camera to let people know that we can see them. So this is one of the cameras here. So it magnetically attaches to a mount. So we have one on the outside, and we also use it if in the infrequent occasion we leave Cooper in the van, we leave a camera on him because we can hear it, and we also can monitor, when we've got the aircon working, we can monitor the temperature of the van to make sure that everything's still okay. From a security perspective, the other thing that we have fitted to the van is what they call a white tie. So it's a sensor that's mounted inside the van, and if anyone tries to hook the van up and tow it away, it senses that, and then it locks the brakes on and sounds an extremely loud alarm. On a couple of occasions we've come back from being out and about, unlocked the van, got in the van, and all of a sudden this alarm goes off, and it's an ear-piercing sound. So it's a very, very good deterrent. So we're happy we've got that. So we really got those things fitted because if we're out and about in a free camp situation, and this being our home now, we really can't afford for someone to just make off with it. When we're in a free camp beside the road and we want to do a day trip somewhere or go and visit the shops or whatever it is, then what we're providing, I guess, is that next level deterrent, as opposed to someone being able to just come in and help themselves out. So yeah, that gives us a bit of a sense of comfort that our assets are being looked after while we're not there.